Let's see what's up there, though, because I think these are actually the judges' microphones. Do you still have a microphone? Here, take this one. Here's your microphone. There is just one. Do you still have your microphone? Did I take it from you? I think I took it from you. Let's go up.
Sorry.
Tom graduated 1 year ahead.
Okay, you have 2 microphones. You're welcome to be here at the lectern if you want, or you can be. Oh, it's not working for you?
Yeah, so we'll be doing it from here.
I think that's true. People have been using it. They have indeed been using it. They have been driving their presentations from here.
Their presentations were all loaded on that computer, which is the difference. He told us we'd have to just do this.
Okay, so you'll be able to talk to each other. Do that. These work, so do these. Don't use them at the same time. You'll have feedback. They're on. They're on. If you want to switch it off while you get organized, this an off. When you switch it on, it takes a minute before it picks up. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I will give you a signal when it is time to start.
Okay,
So I'll tell you when it's time to start.
Just jump down on the stage.
No, still wait up here. It'll just be a minute.
Hey, Mom.
I'll just point it.
Yeah, Daniel. We have to pass the microphone still.
For what?
Okay, could we shut the door of the auditorium, please? Maybe we can.
Well, no.
Are you guys ready? Okay, so I guess we're about to restart now. Just a hint, if you're in here texting, etc., my advice to you is don't. It's really distracting to the teams that are presenting, and now the auditorium is getting more full. If you have an urgent text, I suggest you step out and get it, particularly for the student teams that are here. And everyone should be ready to go. You have microphones. We'll continue as we were doing before. Judges, are you ready? I get the universal thumbs up sign. So the timer will start when you start speaking. Please go ahead and start by introducing your team members.
Excellent. I'm Daniel Farrell. This is Meredith, Lucho, Sam, and Will, and we are here to represent Wanderlift for you.
So yeah, I'm Meredith. Before we get started today, do any of the panelists have their car keys with them? I need to borrow a set of car keys for the presentation. Yes, we have one?
We see you. You can't hide from us. We're not going to just take your BMW and drive off into the distance. Don't worry. This is important because we are ride sharing for long distances. We've realized a platform that enables riders to ride for 80% cheaper and drivers to drive and earn up to 2 times more than a typical Uber or Lyft, all on our current urban infrastructure.
As a freshman in college, I couldn't afford the luxury of these. Getting more than 30 miles from my college campus was nearly impossible without a car. But at the same time, I would watch students every weekend with vehicles go up to the mountains with plenty of empty seats in the back of their cars. So Wanderlift was born on a snowy Saturday, stuck inside with no way to get out of the city. With all of these empty seats, though, why were we having a transportation problem? So today, in the United States, we simply don't carpool enough. And at the same time, there's a lack of flexible and affordable longer distance transportation. We could be using our existing transportation infrastructure much better. But people are already working to solve this problem. Last year alone, in the US, over 2 million rides were shared across Facebook, Craigslist, and Meetup. But these platforms are not designed for transportation. They don't facilitate payment, and rides fall through all of the time because you're missing that accountability that a community or a platform designed with features like ratings provides. Additionally, it's really hard to find the ride that you need on platforms like this because rides across these platforms are highly fragmented.
So we monetize vacant seats through a mobile app. You can see here you can post and request rides to your local community, view all the information you need to decide whether it's worth taking a ride or not, the trip information, the driver's music preferences, and all of that. And then the app itself handles location pickup and drop-off and payment. We make money via a 20% added fee to the seat that a driver actually puts up for the price they want to. So the inevitable ride is paid by the rider with our fee attached to it.
So our team built and launched our app for iOS and Android on January 6th of this last year in Colorado, connecting riders with drivers going up to the ski resorts or from city to city. We opened ride communities on university campuses and in surrounding areas and launched an aggressive guerrilla marketing campaign to get the word out. We handwrote letters to potential drivers, we plastered the campuses with posters, partnered with ski clubs, outdoor clubs, sustainability initiatives on the campuses to spread the word on campus. And in addition to this, we soon found that students were associating the Wanderlift brand with adventure, spontaneity, and a really affordable way to get to their favorite concert venue or up to the mountains. We also frequently drove passengers ourselves in order to really get a first-hand feel for the user experience that our customers were having. We received some local news coverage and then started to see our downloads doubling every week, and we opened up another ride community in downtown Denver.
In just 8 short weeks since launching, our platform realized over 10,000 miles shared.
This garnered attention from potential corporate partners. Zipcar reached out to us, which we were very excited about because just a couple of weeks before they'd partnered with Uber. So with Zipcar, we designed a partnership to launch on Colorado college campuses before moving on to other West Coast states. They drafted a national press release that was to be released with the campaign, and the goal was to work together to both fill more Zipcars and to sell Wanderlift seats.
Actually, while we were competing for this competition back in the semifinals, we drove up to Zipcar to talk about this partnership, and the conversation started leaning towards an acquisition. Everything was really looking up for us at the time until we received this. This already smells bad, doesn't it? This is a letter from the Public Utilities Commission of Colorado. I'm not going to let you read it, but I'll summarize it for you in 3 simple words. Cease and desist.
Yes, we had to stop operations in Colorado. So why did we receive this letter? We'd been operating Wanderlift under an exception in the legislation outlining what a ride-sharing arrangement is because of these definitions. However, the Public Utilities Commission did not agree with us and determined that we were actually operating in the same class as Uber or Lyft and would need to become another transportation network company. While we really appreciated this vote of confidence, as a bootstrapped team, we couldn't afford the $100,000 a year price tag that it costs in Colorado to become a transportation network company. We were really fortunate to work with one of the best attorneys in Denver to resolve this, who'd actually represented Uber and Lyft against the Public Utilities Commission just a couple of years before and learned a lot in the process. So moving forward, we did some research and discovered that, of course, Colorado is actually the most expensive state to operate as a transportation network company in. In the entire US, we're looking at $900,000 annually to operate in every state, with fees varying greatly from state to state. Georgia's about $75 for a permit.
That didn't really stop us, though, because 2 hours ago, we had a phone call with the Colorado Department of Transportation's RoadX initiative, and they are ecstatic about the opportunity to partner with us to bring this to life in a potential white label 2-year contract or otherwise.
Yeah, the state of Colorado is really excited about offering better transportation through ride sharing to underserved populations, and this is the sustainable solution they're looking at the moment, which is very exciting for us. We're also still thinking about other strategic corporate partners, other car sharing companies like Chevy's Maven or Enterprise, or pursuing this independently with some third-party funding.
We have an exceptional team to execute on this. I am honored to introduce Lucio Franco, who is a back-end system architect for the product and has built some amazing products for some of Denver's hottest startups. Sam Schooler is responsible for realizing the mobile app you see today and has experience launching his own companies. Will, over there, just joined the team a couple weeks back and is our business development with experience running his own startup. Meredith does very resourceful campaigning for her own companies in the past, and I run operations and product design for some of the other startups you see up there.
So, is it possible to get more people into fewer vehicles? Yes. We've proven this through this experiment in democratizing transportation. We don't have to wait for electric vehicles or an entirely new way to move people to cut both of our emissions and our commute times in half.
All it takes is you, your phone, and your keys to realize tomorrow's world of transportation today. Thank you.
I can start. So I know with Uber, there's been a lot of debate on liability on the driver and those that are getting in the car with the driver. Have you guys thought through those challenges with your business?
Yeah, we face a lot of the same challenges. So these are some of the ways that we try and take responsibility for these. So we require background checks. We build in a lot of ways to manufacture trust in the platform, user ratings, linking their other social profiles, verifying whether or not they're students when they're in a student or university ride community, and then verifying their insurance, a lot of the same practices.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the public-private partnership aspect of this, and where do you think that is headed, and is that in some way a discriminator or competitive advantage for you?
Like I was saying, we literally just got off the phone with Patrick, who is leading their Rodex partnership situation. He tossed around the idea, at least, of us white labeling the platform, as I had mentioned. One of the major things that we discovered during this kind of trial period of the beta run was that cities had reached out to us in anticipation of providing some sort of ride-sharing solution for kids going to school, going to high school, and for some of the cities, they're 4 hours away from the major Denver metro area. They've been solving it via a radio station and people calling in saying, I'm going here on this time, here's my phone number. So the ability to bring this transportation to underserved communities as well as places where Uber and Lyft can't really get into because it's not really affordable for them to sustain on our model is really what the Colorado Department of Transportation discussion will look like next week when we meet with them in person.
Question for you. You have obviously you've got an innovative business model. I'm curious about the innovation associated with the technology in your app. Can you talk about that at all? How's your app different than, say, Uber or Lyft or whatever? I mean, what makes it different and unique?
There isn't a horrible amount of difference between what we've built and what is available over there. The innovation really happens in the business model and on the government side of it. Historically, like we've had this amazing pro bono work done for us by the lawyer who represented Uber, all the social complications of getting somebody to get into somebody else's car is kind of done. Like we're okay with doing that now, although the older generation still may not really want to do that. The innovation really happens from how we can disrupt what Uber's already been able to achieve.
So as the team grows, looking at the bottom right of the quad there, or the 6 places, how would you have to change your team dynamic? Would you have to scale a team that size, or would you have to focus in different areas and have different skill sets?
Yeah, so something we've already done and found a lot of success in is getting we call them community managers for the different communities that we've launched in. So downtown or the different college campuses who act as our representative, spread the word in person, and we've had a lot of success in that. So our team is really capable and can certainly handle the technology and running the platform right now, but as we would expand to other states, then other team members to help spread the word about the company and for marketing and to represent us would be what we'd be looking at.
Do you have any future plans for other markets? Like, for example, in DC, there's a term they use where people are called slugs, where they do almost by a random process. I've never done it, but be able to use HOV lanes and the like, so it could work even for getting to and from a certain part of the city rather than just the roll of the dice that somebody might stop at the right pickup point. You could arrange it in advance. Have you looked at those kinds of markets as well?
Yeah, we have. We've actually had people ask us reach out from the East Coast, whether college students, but also professionals who make longer commutes. We've had the example of like DC to Philadelphia, for example. It's a commute that they make every day. And so they're wondering whether or not they could potentially monetize that and earn money for something they're already doing. Yes. And the other markets we've looked at are large metro areas with a lot of recreation or reasons to be going farther outside the city. So other West Coast cities would be other targets.
Have you done anything to protect your business model or your plan here? Do you have patents or anything in, or how are you preventing yourself from getting hijacked by Uber or somebody else?
So we've looked into the viability of pursuing a patent, and it would be hard because we're essentially a really well-designed board and network for people to post a commodity and then for someone else to purchase it. It may or may not be patentable, but that differentiation from Uber and Lyft is fundamentally in the business model, where for an Uber driver to take those long trips, it's no longer going to be affordable for the passenger to pay that fare. But when you're already going, you're making a significant amount of money for that.
Three short questions. One is how you would like to comply with different regulations, particularly if you want to expand anywhere else, how you can comply with different regulations. This is the first question. Sorry, the second question is related to this. What is your plan to expand your business? Okay. The third question is what is your revenue to get the return of your investment?
Okay. So for the first. First question, we if we want to expand right now to the other states, we would be needing to pay that fee to become a transportation network company, or looking at similar partnerships to the one we're working on in Colorado, which looks like it could be very viable. As far as then our plan for expansion, yes, these the markets, like I said, with a lot of recreation surrounding them, or cities with long commutes, which is a lot of cities in the U.S. And then the revenue question?
Revenue for investment returns.
Yeah. So our current model, it's not clear whether or not that added fee on a transaction is going to be enough at scale. It looks promising, but we have more work to do on that. But that may look different if we end up white labeling it or doing something else with the technology.
Thank you very much.
No.
Let me take you all to India. Rashmi, a typical Indian citizen who currently facing a lot of problems and diseases because of dirty water. She saw her son dying in front of her 6-year-old son. And it's all because of the basic necessity that we all need. It's the water. We, the More Water team, have a solution for it. We have a solution which is 90% cheaper than our competitors. This solution is based on the idea that saves 2 hours a day for every citizen, which was initially used to get clean drinking water. For doctors, since the water relief when launched reduced 20% of diarrhea morbidity, for doctors it is a beneficial idea since they can attend 2 to 4 extra patients a day. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like now introduce my team. This is Emma Clement, who's the CTO of the company. Zilan Jia, who's the COO. Anushka Kapoor, who couldn't join us today, she's the CFO, and I'm Karthik Singhal, the CEO of the company. With that being said, I would now like to take you through the customer discovery process that we went through. In this customer discovery process, we interviewed about 62 people that included doctors, NGOs, and the citizens who are facing this problem. These 3 key insights that we learned were divided into a map, which are resources, education, and time. Now I would like to go through each of the factors that I just described about. Let's go on talk about the time. In terms of time, generally, when Indian citizens, after interviewed, they said they have to travel about 2 to 4 miles a day. This can be converted to about 2 hours a day, roughly, that is being spent in order to get relatively clean water. Yes, it's just a term that they said relatively, but it's actually not clean according to doctors after being interviewed them. Now, let's go through the education part. We all know that education is a really important factor for all of us, and it creates a deep impact in the world. Illiteracy is rising in India, and it's one of the bigger factors which is causing the citizens to believe that they don't understand the fact that how they can utilize the natural resources around them, and they don't know the technical know-how of using those resources. So, utilizing all these resources, we have a solution for that as well. But before that, let's just go over the resources part of it. Resources is one of the biggest factor. And I would now like to talk about the general wages and cost structure or employee structure over there in India. Generally, villagers in India are earning about $5 to $10 a day. This $5 to $10 a day is also added to the fact that these citizens do not have enough electricity. I know it. I have been born and brought up in India, and I have seen many families facing these problems. There's no reliable electricity, and they're facing with acute problems because they do not have the funds. So, considering the fact that reverse osmosis is one of the competitors distributed through Aquaguard, Kentaro, some of the competitors, it costs around $200 to $350 per unit, and maintenance costs are in addition to that. Now, how would they even imagine buying such an expensive filter when they can't even afford to spend their daily life in $5 to $10 a day? This is one of the very big concerns for everyone over there. We divided that into different factors, and to now bring up the attention to all the key insights that we learned that we must have a filter that is good at the educational factor. It reduces time, which is used in order to get clean drinking water, and it is accessible and affordable. The three key insights is the foundation of our whole idea behind it. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to present you the technology behind the More Water Filtration Kit. This technology is based on the two key natural resources available around the environment, the seed and the sand. The seed are the moringa seeds. These moringa seeds contain antimicrobial protein, which when mixed with filtered sand produces a sticky killer sand. This sticky killer sand has the ability to reduce up to 99.9999% of pathogens and thus give a relatively clean water. Let me talk to you about the first prototype that we developed in order to get this whole thing running. As you can see on the slide with the left-hand side, there's a big funnel that collects water. When the water passes through the filter, which is at the bottom of it, this filter is basically the constitution of the technology that we have. After passing through this filter, citizens can collect water in their pots. So as you see on the right, there's a pot that a lady is making on her own. This is a general technique used in India to handcraft the pots. And the design was made into a factor that when the funnel sits on a pot, it can adjust according to different sizes. This is the technology behind it, and this is the design for us. Let's go over the most important factor of all our ideas. This is the business thesis. As I discussed about the educational factor and the affordability and accessibility, we based our business thesis on two main factors, accessibility and affordability. People in India are earning about $5 to $10 a day, as mentioned before. And one of the key insights that we learned was they are also willing to spend about $3 a day, which constitutes about $36 generally a year. Now, $36 a year is not that much amount to produce a filter, but since we are building the solution to produce filtered water through natural resources, we have the ability to produce a filter of $15 a unit, and we will be at a profit margin of 50% a unit. There are about 70 million people in India who are lacking with access to clean drinking water, and we need to cater to all of them soon enough. In the supply chain that you see over here, it's basically talking about the different ideas, and we learned through our customer discovery process that we can use different distribution channels as described over there, NGOs, pharmaceutical units, stores, and retailers. We initially were just going over the door-to-door methods. Now, the next steps include going over the Bureau of Indian Standards to get the intellectual property safe, and education marketing plan with Literacy India, one of the NGO contacts, to step into the marketing of our foundation. Rashmi will no longer have to face these problems again. A citizen who faced these problems before, and many other families that I have seen who have been facing the diarrheal diseases, will be safe with our solution. We would like to open for any questions that you guys might have. Thank you.
Yes, I'll go first this time. So you talked about your solution, and it filtered out 99 point, a lot of nines for pathogens. What water did you sample, and is this indicative of other regions, or is this something that's going to be specific only to India?
So in our tests, in our lab tests, we have done many samples of using water with high concentrations of, we started with model microbes, which are particles that aren't dangerous to you, so it's safer in the lab. And we got this high removal. And in addition, we are working to use bacteria with, or water concentrated with 10 to the 6th particles per mil of E. coli and other bacteria, and we're getting the same removal as well. And this concentration is much higher than the bacteria or particle count that you would expect in areas such as India.
What is the life cycle on the filter? In other words, how long can you use that moringa seed and sand construction, then reuse it before you have to replace it?
So the filter, with the size, based on our size, you can basically make the filter last as long as you want, depending on if you have how much sand and seed you use. So you could make a tiny filter that's this big. You could fill a garbage can with this coated sand and make a filter. But for the size we are looking at, it would last about a year.
Have you made comparisons to other technology? Because in this competition, we have already several related to water. Have you made comparisons in terms of technology and cost? The second question, you are talking with special reference to India. Can this also be used to other places?
Well, so for the first question, our filter would achieve similar filtering quality of water as other products out there. However, ours is, we believe, the best. We are biased, but because of the sustainability and low technology factor. And do you want to answer the other question?
So we just took an example of India. As a company, we want to step into a market with a bigger scope at the beginning. But moringa seeds and this filtration device basically has a very large capacities and future potential. I can give another example, which is through South Africa. Actually, the team at Penn State have also conducted results and analysis over there, because South Africa has similar problems over there as well. And there are many applications that could be viable through this filtration technique in the United States as well.
How do you plan on launching this? Can you talk a little bit more in depth about the partnerships that you're going to be doing and how you're marketing this to the masses?
So we would like to first start with the trials. As a team of 3 or 4, we would first begin with NGOs who are catering around, and there are different partners around us in India. After conducting 62 interviews, we had one partner, Literacy India. We would want to use that contact of ours to start with the fundamentals of establishing the market and use the students. Like Literacy India has a huge diverse schools around India. We would like to go around and bring the families around over there in order to show them the product. And also at the same time, we have some governmental officials who are basically the leaders of the government, like special villages. So we have some contacts over there, and we would like to start over there by going and giving them 30-day trials. With that, we would like to now, in our next steps, plan accordingly with the analysis of how we want to launch it in different NGOs and through our different partners. Sorry, I would like to add one thing. Through pharmaceutical units, as you have seen in the supply chain layout. Some of our doctors around the villages, we contacted them, and they're really glad to know about this product. And they have given us potential contacts in the government who could give us the insight into the pharmaceutical units. And in the long term, after NGOs and education marketing plans, we would not then like to step into the pharmaceutical units and step by step ahead in the longer term.
Other questions? Well, then I'll ask a question. Give us an example of a place where you did your customer discovery and changed your strategy. So where did the customer discovery cause you to change what you were doing?
So yeah, that's a very good, really good question. Considering the fact we were initially in semifinals for USA, we were only providing value proposition for citizens around India. But as we progressed into the deeper fact of the customer discovery, when we went to doctors, analyzed the situation in a little deeper analysis, they gave us some statistics. We got to know about how we can use doctors' time and the fact that this filtration technique reduces 20% of diarrhea morbidity and link doctors into our value proposition. This was one of the examples that we felt very nicely that we saw in the past 11 sessions that we developed our value proposition and business thesis a lot, and we learned a lot from that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Testing. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming out. We are World Care Technologies. I'm Kirk Hutchison.
My name is Martin Hartel.
Yadra Maker.
Allison Dushnak.
Christopher Liu.
So World Care Technologies is a benefit corporation working to develop HIV viral load testing systems that are accessible even to hospitals and clinics in rural regions, affordable with savings of 50% or more compared to our competitors, and equally effective to US market equivalents. So first, let's talk about what viral load testing is. Someone who gets HIV today is much better off, astronomically better off than they would have been 10, 20 years ago. If you take your medicine regularly and faithfully and you have access to top-of-the-line testing services, viral load tests twice a year to make sure your treatment is working, that there's no drug resistance or any other problems, someone who gets HIV today at 20 years old can expect to live to 78, which is a miracle. It's a medical miracle. Unfortunately, the places that need this kind of service the most are exactly the places that don't have it. 2/3 of people in the world who are HIV positive live in Sub-Saharan Africa. And while you're supposed to get an HIV viral load test 2 times or 3 times a year if you have HIV, the majority of HIV positive people in Sub-Saharan Africa have never had a viral load test. That means you're taking your medicine, but you have no effective way to verify whether it's working. If your treatment fails, you won't know till it's already too late. We're trying to do something about that. We'll start with Marty taking you through the technical aspects of our solution.
So, if this HIV viral load monitoring is such a prevalent issue, how come it hasn't been addressed yet? Well, the primary pain point is cost. For use in a laboratory or university setting, a device costs around $100,000 and $25 to $35 per test, depending on the region. Our device is going to be under $1,000 and between $10 to $15 per test. Another main issue is integration. So I pulled this quote from a research paper on commercializing these devices, and they found that many of them failed from startups or research perspectives because many failed to integrate the many technical aspects of the project. So we addressed that by starting from the ground up, and we began with a compartmentalized approach for easy swap and go repairs to minimize costs in the long run, and yet a overall integrated approach to minimize contamination and still, more importantly, minimize technician skill, which is a major issue, and it also varies depending on the region. So, how does our system work? Based on a tried and true method, remember the goal is to quantify the HIV particles in a patient's blood sample to make sure that their treatment is successful and that the viral load count is kept low. So how does it work? Based on tried and true methods, we begin by a clinician takes a patient's blood sample, injects it into the device, and out comes, it's run through various solutions, and the HIV RNA is extracted. That isolate is then ran through our microfluidic chip right here, where it is mixed with amplifying reagents, and it's run parallel with water. So at the bottom, you get this series of dilution wells. These chips are then placed onto our thermocycler, where through various hot and cold cycles, this HIV RNA is amplified because it's too minute to detect directly. And then our fluorescent imager, based on the intensity of fluorescence of these wells, you can back out the viral load count and whether treatment is still successful or we need to switch medications. So, currently we're keeping costs low by prototyping with cheap materials such as acrylic, easily accessible materials that are 3D printable. But in the long run, we've begun researching injection molding for these plastic chips and more commercial approaches for our printed circuit boards. But another key innovation that really limits the use of these point-of-care devices was refrigeration. So many of these chemical reagents require refrigeration, which is limiting them to these laboratory or hospital settings. But we found that by freeze-drying them directly onto our chips, they can be temperature stable. So not only can we distribute our devices, we can distribute these temperature stable chips that are good to go for clinicians to pop in and use. And with that.
Thank you, Martin. So we've got a product. Now, how do we get the product out into the world? This is a little ecosystem map. The thing I really want to emphasize here, in interest of time, is our partnerships with manufacturers. So, you can't design and build a device in the US at US salaries and US prices and expect it to be cost effective in the developing world. You have to go into the communities you seek to serve and make partnerships. So for us, that's starting with Mexico. It's right next door. We're from San Diego. 20 minutes to Tijuana. It's so close. Fortunately for us, a large number of American medical devices firms have already contracted out their manufacturing to partners in Tijuana, meaning there's groundwork already laid for high quality and large scale manufacturing of medical device components at low cost. So this is one of the key things that will let us do our initial rollout while keeping the prices at the affordable level that we're seeking. Other key partners, of course, regulators. For any medical device, regulation is an issue that will take a half hour to cover that properly. And of course, our healthcare providers, who are really the people we're working with day to day, the doctors and the hospital administrators. Those are the people we're making sure are trained right and have the best experience possible using our device so they can improve outcomes for their patients. So just briefly, a timeline. Right now, we're concluding laboratory validation of our devices. That means we're running them through very rigorous testing to ensure that they'll be up to the standards for clinical trials. We're leading up to an NIH STTR grant submission September 5th. We're going to go through a few grant cycles and other fundraising, hoping to raise a total of $250,000 to support a year-long clinical trial in Tijuana starting in 2018, followed by about $1 million for our initial scale-up and sale and implementation. We're running out of time here, so I will just briefly do this. Our main expense is skilled personnel. We're students, but in order to take a company from the university to the real world, you have to turn students into employees. So we're looking to get 2 full-time employees, our own lab space, manufacturing and supplies costs out of that $250,000 so that we can really make this not just a neat project, but something that can really save lives and help people. And so lastly, our team, mentioned briefly, we've got an amazing team. I've had the blessing and the privilege to work with these people over 3 years since I first came to college. I'm sure you'll hear all of their wonderful expertise during the Q&A, but just thank you so much for hearing us out, and we'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Again, I just keep starting. Okay, so early on in your presentation, you threw out a price of $900. And then we walked through the investment, which, you know, that was a good aha moment for me in terms of, yes, okay, this money is needed up front. So my question is, at what point do you get to that break point where it is truly a cost of $900 per unit?
So that's actually about how much it costs us to build one now. But that's not with any profit that will be needed to grow and sustain the business. But the hope is that through the cost savings of large-scale production, we'll be able to, that's where the margins will come in, that will make this a sustainable business model.
How are you planning on taking the product to market in Sub-Saharan Africa? So what's your route to market there? And the follow-on question from that is, once the product is out in a rural health clinic, what is the maintenance cycle, and how much do you need to refresh the product to make it sustainable for people?
Absolutely. So in terms of the path to market in Sub-Saharan Africa, great question, a huge question. We have a lot more market research and discovery to do before we're at that point. So we're starting with Latin America. I've been doing lots of interviews, going down to clinics in Tijuana, talking to doctors, talking to medical students, talking to patients, and that's a process that really needs to repeat in Sub-Saharan Africa if I want to be confident about that. But we have been working with doctors who have experience there, as well as a firm, Djembe Communications, who have been graciously giving us some pro bono market advice there. So we're working on that plan. In terms of maintenance, that's a huge thing. One of the first things I ever was told about this when I walked into the project, the professor said, it's no use giving $100,000 viral load testing to a hospital in South Africa if the nearest technician lives in Spain and has to fly in. So our whole mantra is everything should be repairable with easily sourced components, and our design will be fully open source.
I don't know. So how many? What is the quantity? How many have you been produced? And what is the stability of the quality? And what is the accuracy if you compare with the conventional one?
So to speak a little bit to the accuracy, the sensitivity and specificity, we are currently actually trying to determine. We have been able to go through numerous iterations of our devices to try to get it up to comparable levels to US standards. We are still working on that, and that is the data that we're actually trying to submit to our STTR grant in September 5th. We need to go a few more ways to get it to be comparable to US standards, but we definitely believe we can get there. We're working with doctors from the School of Medicine who have graciously been able to advise us on this process and have gone through other STTR grants themselves and believe that we're well on our ways to getting comparable levels.
Do you have an approach to, I mean, typically the cycle time for this is measured in years, not months. What is your plan to get from where you are today to the point where you're in a sustaining business operation?
So this is definitely a long haul kind of proposal. So we've already been working on this project for 4 years since its inception. I've been on the project for 3. In terms of how we take it from that initial clinical trial to commercial scale up, I'll be honest, there's a lot that we need to learn. We're students, we're not people who have built companies of this scale before or done medical device stuff. This is something that we're gonna have to face as we go. So right now I'm learning, how do you navigate the regulatory system of a foreign country's medical approval. I mean, if you think the FDA is bad, try to do it all in Spanish, right? Like it's a learning curve. But I think the key to that will really be leaning on the experience of our advisors. We have many advisors who have built companies before and who have business plans. I've participated in the NSF I-Corps and I've learned a ton through this program as well that I think will guide us through that.
Describe again a little bit about the infrastructure required to support your product. I mean, do you require, I thought I heard you say you required refrigeration and how, I mean, out at the site where it's taken. So how do you envision that being able to proliferate your product in a third world environment?
Right, so let me clarify. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, but actually one of our key innovations is not requiring refrigeration, which is the case for most US equivalents, which is one of the main reasons even if they're donated freely, they're not very useful in these developing countries. Infrastructure in generally, the main challenge is having the technicians who can repair and operate the device. So we intend to work with local hospital systems to ensure that that's not, us flying experts in. It's something that we can empower local communities rather than being the outside man.
Have you thought about using 3D printing locally to allow you to refresh the product, given that you're already starting off using 3D printers?
Yeah, so that was initially one of the main points of using it in addition to fast prototyping, was that similar with acrylic, instead of metals and heavier plastics, is they're easier to come by, so we can source those out to the countries we're trying to help. But it's something we could look at, but in terms of robustness and stability, the materials do lack. That's why the standards are metal and such. But it's something we definitely would look into once we finish the run through.
It has a very fast question.
Can you talk a little bit about the market that you're proposing to go to? So my understanding, this product is directly linked to someone who has HIV who's taking medication. Is that a substantial market, or is Sub-Saharan Africa not taking medication in the first place? So would they need this test?
One of the fastest growing markets in the world. So the access of people to HIV treatment is, thanks to initiatives like PEPFAR and UN initiatives and international foundations, is really expanding. So we've gone from, in 2 decades, we've gone from 0% penetration of antiretroviral drugs in Sub-Saharan Africa to over 25%. So it's getting to the point where this kind of a thing is needed. And we have years of implementation, during which time it will only continue to rise. The UN's goal is by 2020, 90% coverage. We'll see about that, but I'm hopeful.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Great.
Hello?
Your entire team can be on stage with you. And before you start, you need to see this box. This is going to be yellow when you have 1 minute to go, and red when it's time to stop, and I'll stop you if necessary. But you can all just be on the stage already. All right. Judges, are you ready?
Thank you. Good afternoon, deans, professors, entrepreneurs, and students. I'm Li Feng, the co-founder of Dream House Group from Shanghai University. When I was a little boy, I spent holidays in my grandpa's home, which was Yaodong, the traditional housing in North China countryside. It was warm in winter and cool in summer. I believed it was my grandpa's magic. Later, I learned that the building materials and the structure of Yaodong function like a natural air conditioning system, which rents a really comfortable living environment. Now, with urbanization in China, more tall buildings have risen up in cities with a modern facade of plain glass and steel. Great, right? But people rely heavily on aircon, AC, for regulating the inside room temperature. This has caused a serious problem of urban infrastructure, over energy consumption. Here is an astonishing fact. About 63 trillion kilowatt hours of energy is consumed in buildings worldwide every year, and AC accounts for half of that. So is there a natural green solution to restore the home feeling of Yaodong in all cities? What we propose today involves the building materials of glass. By improving on glass, windows can be turned into natural ACs that controls the home temperature throughout the year. We conducted nearly 400 surveys, which includes 43 face-to-face interviews. To our surprise, we learned that the energy saving and comfort are not the only concerns. The intelligent regulation of temperature and cost effectiveness should also be put into consideration. As a result, we decided to produce an energy-saving glass with smart temperature regulation functions and a high-performance price ratio. And we made it iSmart, the dually regulated coated glass. And this is iSmart. iSmart is a glass that is coated with vanadium dioxide films that controls the solar radiation entering the room according to its phase transition. That is to say, on hot days, vanadium dioxide is a metal that blocks more solar heat. You can see on the right, reducing energy from space cooling. And on cold days, it turns into a semiconductor that allows more solar pass through, so the room can be heated. So hot becomes cool, and cold becomes warm in a natural way. So, as you can see from the video, unlike traditional glass, the dual function of iSmart contributes to high energy efficiency of the urban infrastructure. According to our test, iSmart can save about 15% of total energy consumption. In China, that means about 1.3 billion kilowatt hours of electricity can be saved every year, and thereby producing additional energy for 0.3 million people, and simultaneously reducing carbon dioxide emission by 1.3 billion kilograms. So what does it mean? It means each year the energy we save can supply half of Washington, D.C. More importantly, the raw material, vanadium, is much cheaper, and the liquid coating technology we used reduces the complexity and cost of production. As you can see, iSmart is more cost-effective, only half of the market price, with an environmental friendly life cycle. These features are not only dual function, but also green, affordable, and super energy efficient. So clearly, we are the best in the market. It took us nearly 2 years to move from laboratory to factory. And for example, you can see our demonstration projects and application cases in hotels and office buildings throughout China. Yeah, and there are large potential customers. We have targeted our main customers as the following 3 segments: public, commercial, residential. And we aim to be one of the main players in the coated glass industry. Since there are large potential customers in public buildings, and their public awareness is strengthened. Further, Chinese government is supporting the green public infrastructure industry. For instance, it's strictly regulating the energy saving indexes of building materials. And it's also providing tax relief policy for the development of green and high technology. With this trend, we have successfully acquired the business cooperation with Alumni Activity Center in Shanghai University. But our real buyers are glass dealers. And for this reason, we have developed a strategy to get our dealers with an integrated online and offline marketing strategy. iSmart will be manufactured by OEM and sold to our end users. We've contracted Yaohua and Fuyao Company as our initial manufacturers. As our addressable market is a temperature climate region, we will be based in the Yangtze River Delta in the following 3 years and plan to expand to the hinterland into North China. So our sales revenue will experience double growth annually, which outgrows our main competitors, and reach to $135 billion in 2020, with about 15% of total gross margin rate. So a high profit mainly lies in our high gross margin rate. We are definitely running fast, and we've been working on improving our product properties through more pilot projects. In the near future, we plan to provide integrated end solutions by developing the humidifying paint as well as reflective coatings, and we expect to expand to the commercial and residential market. And we also intend to expand to the car industry. So now, my grandpa's Yaodong can be rebuilt in cities, and I can experience all the sweet home feelings again, even in these magnificent skyscrapers. Finally, let me sum up our projects with 3 keywords: energy saving, dual function glass, and green living. We're dedicated to saving our planet in our own way, creating an eco-friendly environment, improving urban infrastructure, and using our smart building materials. We are Dream House. Thank you for your gentle attention. Welcome to our partners. Thank you.
You didn't talk about competitors. I'm interested in knowing whether any other companies are using vanadium as a material to build new glass.
Okay, for the raw material, vanadium dioxide, we are the first to use the material for the coated glass, and compared with other competitors, our glass has dual functions in temperature controls. That means it can regulate inside room temperature, both in hot and cold days. Means it uses the liquid coating technology. It's firstly applied in the manufacturing of the iSmart, and it means less energy consumption can be consumed. Yeah.
Actually, compared to the low-E glasses, we are half of their price. So compared with the other functional glass, our product is much cheaper.
Maybe I would like to follow this question. I also concerned about, have you compared with similar technology and also with building PVC?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, we did the comparison with CVD and PVD. Because we use the liquid coating technology, it means less pollution and energy consumption. And we did a calculation, and we found that by using our technology, about 41 energy can be saved during the production process. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess your key technologies in the coating, is that right? Which one? What is your core technology? Is that the coating?
The core technology lies in 3 aspects. The first is the synthesis of vanadium dioxide itself. The second one is about the surface modification and dispersion of the vanadium dioxide nanopowder. The third one is about the coating technology and the thermal curing process. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that that is also very unique technology to improve the performance. After coating, it can strengthen the strength. There's another technology. So after coating, your weight is increased or reduced. Because there's very good technology. After coating, not only the optical characteristics, the mechanical characteristics also improve. So you can reduce the weight. Because such a building, weight is very significant considerations. I don't know after this one, the building weight is increased or reduced.
Can you speak to how your process changes the mechanical properties of the glass in addition to the optical properties?
Definitely not. Yeah. The weight won't change. Yeah.
Yes, by using your glass, the building, if compared with the original, the weight of the building is increased or decreased. Because if you increase the weight, the foundation also increase.
So are you adding mass to the glass that then changes the structural, such that you actually need to make structural modifications to the building because of the increased weight of the glass? That's the question.
Yes.
Because the iSmart is a film applied to the glass, and the film is very thin, so it won't cause any changes to.
Doesn't add to the mass supported. Kate, do you want to? Just holding the microphone. Questions?
Yeah, I had a question about, you said the smart regulation of the glass. Is the switch from cold to warm or back again totally automatic in different weather? Do you understand the question?
Because for now, our iSmart can will be mainly used in the temperate region, and so we set a temperature, and if the weather outside is hotter, hotter or cooler than this temperature, so it can just automatically change.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Regulate the
Just like an automatic switch, you can imagine that, and once the gaps of temperature occurs, and our iSmart will work.
So I wasn't 100% clear. Is the product mixed into the glass in the manufacturing process, or is it a film that is attached to it? So is there potential to retrofit existing buildings with this product to make them more energy efficient?
Yes. For now, our product is a coated glass, and for the existing buildings, we can provide the coated film or the paint that can be easily used on the old buildings. Yeah. Yeah.
This is our future plan. The coating film.
Excellent. Thank you, team, for your presentation. Okay. This is your slide advancer. The big button goes forward.
Yes.
You have two microphones up here. Look at the box. See the red box?
Yes.
Or the black box? It will turn yellow when you have 1 minute to go, and it will be red when you run out of time.
Yellow, 1 minute.
Yellow is 1 minute. You have 7 minutes for your presentation and then 6 minutes for Q&A, so it will run twice.
And this works?
Both of these, they work.
Oh.
So I would recommend use this or these, but don't have this next to all of them.
Quick question about Q&A time. Do we get cut off if we run out of time in Q&A?
Yes, I will cut you off if you run out of time, but it will have plenty of time. 6 minutes is actually a long time.
Understood. So what was that about the two mics? Keep
Just
them
don't,
away
just,
from that.
just don't use this mic and stand right over here.
Sure.
Because
Okay.
it'll be
Yeah.
a
Okay.
little too much.
You want to be centered.
You want to be centered. Who's your first speaker? You,
No, it's him.
So
Yes.
you want to make sure that you just introduce your entire team as you get started, okay?
Would that be
That's part of your 7 minutes. So just give everyone a very quick introduction of
Okay.
who's who. That's
Team slide later in the.
you can spend more time on it, but just say hello to your team.
like the team will be introduced in
Right, just give just a
like
quick
a brief
hello of
introduction.
who's who.
Okay.
Just even their names makes a
Sure.
big difference. This is for your own good, trust me.
Yes.
It's better.
Thanks.
So, okay.
When I say your name, raise your hand. Okay.
So two people on the left.
What?
You're AK with me. AK with me.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
All right, dessert comes at the end of the meal. This is our last presentation of the day. Judges, are you ready to go? All right, guys, when you're ready.
Good afternoon. We are Team Genergy, and today we are here to present our idea, which is the portable energy harvesting solution, Genergy. Here we have AK, Sid, Shrey, and Darian. This is Mr. Askar. He's from my teammate Shrey's native village in India. In the state of Uttar Pradesh, he works up to 15 to 16 hours a day, earning a meager 11 USD per month with essentially zero savings. At the end of the day, he returned to his home where he could only afford up to 3 to 4 hours of electricity per day, which is hardly enough to sustain his basic electrical needs. But there are a lot more people out there like Mr. Askar. To date, more than 1.2 billion people lack stable access to electricity. The obvious solution to this would be to install conventional grid solution to provide for those in need. However, this will require a staggering amount of up to $665 billion in investment. In light of this, people have no choice but to turn to fuel power lamps such as kerosene. However, the potential benefits hardly make up for its drawbacks. For instance, people spend up to 30% of their income on kerosene alone. It does more harm in the long run, and it contributes to global warming, increasing the risk of TB by nearly 10 times, and it has caused close to 2 million deaths. These figures fail to justify the prolonged usage of fuel power lamps as a solution. So we believe as a team that change is needed. The conventional solutions are unsafe, ineffective, and expensive. While the electrification remains indisputably a major global issue, our focus is on India for a good number of reasons. For one, India houses the largest unelectrified population in the world, with up to 240 million people lacking stable access to electricity, where most of them reside in poor rural areas. And over 70% of income in these areas are actually generated from manual labor, which is an important aspect for our product application to be explained later. And pilot marketing will be conducted in the state of Uttar Pradesh, where a majority of our interviews are conducted, and over 50% of the rural households in the state of Uttar Pradesh are presently unelectrified.
Now our solution takes the form of a simple and ergonomic house solenoid, and we attempt to convert the otherwise underutilized kinetic energy into useful electrical energy. And in so doing, we will provide a non-intrusive method of energy harvesting. This will provide greater gains for the quality of life, as it is both easy to use and requires minimal extra knowledge for the end user. Now, the way this works is by using a solenoid, and by running a magnet through this, we will induce a current. And by optimizing both the coils of the current and the power of the magnet, and by further using a purpose-built PCB charging station, we will maximize the amount of energy we can harvest from an individual swing. This is later stored in a battery that can be used later in the day, say when the light's down. Now, after conducting interviews with individuals in the market, and we found 4 key factors. 1, many of the end users live in temporary shelters. This means that they're no longer able to use solar panels. And secondly, the #1 non-autonomous expenditure is on phone charging and lighting, electricity. So 3, religious key opinion leaders are the fundamental movers and changers in these facilities. So these are the people that we need to focus on to affect this change in these issues. And 4, an on-site team will be necessary, regardless of the way we conduct our distribution. Our use case is split into 2 fundamental cases. 1, as an individual product for an individual's use, and 2, as a single unit within a larger system. As an individual product, we will aim to convert 5 to 6 hours of mid to strenuous activity to charge up a 2400 milliamp battery. And this realizes a recharge cycle of 1.3 times of a standard Nokia handheld phone. And in the second use case, where it's a single unit within a larger system and array, we'll create a 2D array which provides us a greater throughput. This allows us to power more substantial activities, such as lighting during the night, or maybe even cooling during the summer days.
Our value to NGOs is tremendous. The compact design and the low cost of our solution enables it to be more scalable as compared to conventional solutions such as torches and solar panels. Moreover, we intend to participate in an NGO's activities, which is the Lighting a Billion Lives initiative, as we want to generate an impact as well. Our go-to-market strategy essentially comprises of 2 phases. The first phase involves initiating product trials with the farmers and construction workers, which will enable us to reiterate several versions of the product to make sure we get it right. Phase 2 would involve the actual deployment of the solution. We'll engage with on-site NGOs who have an established working relationship with our target market and directly sell to the end user. The microfinancer becomes an interesting stakeholder at this point, because we're looking at a consumer who's unable to pay. The microfinancer would guarantee a loan on their behalf, thereby minimizing credit risk for us. As of now, our unit prototyping cost is $9.79, but that will drastically reduce as we scale to manufacturing, thereby leading us to a proposed price in the range of $10 to $15. We forecast distribution to encompass a large section of our cost stack, as there's great complexity in delivering our solution in off-the-grid areas and remote areas. Other immediate costs include on-site phase team setup and R&D, but those will be relatively streamlined due to simple technology. We believe we have the right team to deliver this change. We come from diverse backgrounds of engineering, business, and science. We have a strong team of advisors backing us as well. We have Marie Rosenkratz, who's founded our own venture, and we have Mr. Donnie Sue, who's the Associate Director of Entrepreneurship at HKUST. Our goals with Genergy are simple yet impactful. We want to enable them to get extra income by working longer hours into the night. We want to enhance safety and social security by providing them overnight lighting solutions and fully charged mobile phones. We want to empower women to take up more paid employment opportunities due to safer working conditions. And lastly, we want to enable children to study longer and further. Our ask to you is we want to optimize our product design, so we want to interface with an energy company. We want to get into social incubators to leverage on their network. And lastly, we want to engage with manufacturers and distributors as well. We thank you for your time and are happy to take questions.
So I'm confused in the sense, what's generating the energy? I got it with the batteries and the storage, but all you said was basically manual work to create the energy. Where's the energy that's coming from in the beginning?
Could we go back to the slide? So inside, it's a tool that attaches to the handle of let's say a pickaxe, and then when you swing the pickaxe, inside a magnet connected to springs will oscillate continuously.
So when somebody mentioned a solenoid, that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, essentially.
I have a question about your customer discovery interviews. What have you learned in that space, and how viable is this product for people to purchase it?
Okay, so the essential understanding was we want to generate an impact by giving them something renewable. So the key thing we wanted to figure out was who are going to be the early adopters who can really push this innovation. And we were quite surprised, frankly, to find out that religious KOLs were one of the early adopters who were very interested, because in these off-the-grid areas, they're essentially still a working class population, but they just have that leverage of having a God shelter where people attend to. So it's kind of a show and effect demonstration. So if these guys use it, then more farmers will look at the effect and go for it. And temporary shelters, as they explained in the deck, is not viable for solar panels because there's no sole owner. So these were the two key ones, if I were to say.
Can you talk a little bit about maintenance of the product once it's fielded and the end user has it? If something goes wrong with it, what is the approach for maintaining?
So that's why we mentioned the on-site team. So according to our research, we did a lot of research and found out that companies who have an on-site tech team do really well. And as our product is really simple, the farmer doesn't need to know how to use it, and it's non-invasive. So he just puts on his tool and does his daily work, right? And as per the maintenance, we've estimated that after every 1.5 years, the only maintenance that would be the change of the batteries, which are rechargeable due to its charging cycle, and also the lubricant to use the lubricant for the magnets and the springs. Those are the only tech support that they would need.
Yeah, if I were to briefly add on to that, there's a company called Celco who pioneered low-cost solar panels for $300 and they're targeting a similar market as us. And they've delivered this solution effectively using an installment-based payment model. So we're trying to be into that space as well. The model has worked. People are adopting this technology. They're willing to pay, despite their low incomes, for such technology.
What is your business model? How to attract people to use this? And is there any safety and security issue?
Sorry, the last?
Safety.
Safety.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll answer the business side and safety. I'll pass it on to my tech team. So that was the whole incentive behind phase one, is because we want to engage with them on site. Right now, we've done interviews with them to see what their pain points are, and we try to construct a solution where their behavior will be able to adopt it. They don't have any further knowledge to be inculcated. So phase one, we'll interact with them. We'll get to know whether they like the product. We'll iterate several versions till we feel like, yeah, they like it, and we'd go forward with the solution. And as per safety, yeah.
So I'll take this question. So we plan to make the device the internals of the device completely sealed off. So the solenoid, the charging circuit, completely sealed in and like inside a cylinder, so that they won't get access. The users won't get access to the inside. So I think they won't have any electrical safety issues as they can't tamper with it.
Thinking about scalability, have you thought about, I mean, if you are successful and you manage to penetrate, say, the whole of India, how big does your team need to be to support the product?
As I mentioned with the cost stack, as of now, our team forecasts that distribution would be the biggest hassle because we're talking about areas with minimal infrastructure to access. So, of course, some NGOs in the market of Uttar Pradesh already have a stronghold, and they are interacting with these target markets, so we want to leverage using their experience first. So they'll handle the distribution cycle. Now, for areas where they don't have a stronghold, that would probably be phase 3 when we go to another state where there's no such thing, and we'll probably engage with our own sales team because the case study of Celco, the low-cost solar panel company, they tailor-make their solutions. So they actually go to each individual's place and set up the solar panels and light bulbs and fans. So that has been very successful for them because people feel empowered that this person's coming to personally install the system for me.
Sorry, one more question. So how fragile are these? I mean, it seems like you have very small parts and you're putting them on construction equipment that's pretty aggressive. Have you guys looked into how robust the product needs to be?
So I think there are a few ways to increase product durability. One is to look at the way that the device is attached to a handle. So we thought of using a rubber cushion pipe clamps, so that would absorb most of the shock when you hit the tool. Another is to properly lubricate and tune the springs attached to the magnet so that there's minimal abrasion, and also airtight seal would mean that the magnet won't be water won't get into the internals, and then there won't be any abrasion or corrosion on the inside. So there are some mechanical design ways to make this more durable.
Right now we're in the prototyping phase. So right now we have used a PVC pipe, and a 3D printed model. So in the later stage, as he said, that we are focusing on using ABS or PVC, which is lighter, more durable, and it won't corrode. And as per the working of the prototype, we have done all kinds of testing, and we are getting a good amount of current output. And we didn't do, of course, a 6-hour or a long-term test. We have done a short-term test and extrapolated from that, added a few more hours for some uncertainties, and then we got 5 to 6 hours. It might be less than that when we make a good model.
We're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, please join me in giving all of our teams a round of applause. If you want to know how the day went, you can ask NC State since they were here first and have been here through the entire day. Here's what's going to happen now. The judges and I will exit, and the judges will begin to deliberate. At the same time, if you have a prototype that you would like to show in our technology showcase, please get it and bring it now. When the judges are done deliberating, which should take about 20 to 30 minutes, we shall see. At that point, they will return, and we will first have a technology showcase, and then the judges will give some general remarks to everyone, but will not announce the winners. The winners will be announced on Thursday. As a reminder, you are competing for 3 prizes. There is a $10,000 third place prize, $15K for second, and $25,000 for first place. So we will look forward to hearing the judges' general remarks that apply to everyone in a little while. So at this point, we'll have a break. Please get your prototype if you'd like to show it during our showcase phase in about half an hour.